My dear friends, today we celebrate the fifth Sunday in the season of Easter in year C. The readings focus on the growth of the early church as a result of faith, consistent fellowship of love, and communal sharing. The readings also highlight the closeness of God and His presence among us through His promise of a new heaven and a new earth. The first reading from the Acts of the Apostles centers on St. Paul's first missionary journey. It describes how Paul and Barnabas traveled from city to city, preaching the gospel, establishing churches, and making sure that the churches were healthy before moving on. For them, evangelization was about forming disciples who sought to know God through Christ, who loved God through the church fellowship and loved others as they loved themselves. Notice that it was in Antioch that the disciples were first called Christians because of their distinct identity and influence in that city. The believers in Antioch actively shared their faith and demonstrated the love of Christ, which set them apart from the surrounding culture. It was this lifestyle, therefore, and of course the actions that they exhibited that drew attention and led people to inquire about their faith. Although the name Christian started as a descriptive name, the believers in Antioch embraced it and adopted it as their unique identity. Thus, non-believers were struck by the witness of love in the early church. They would remark, see how they love one another. Christianity understood from this perspective shows that Paul's preaching was consistent with the key preaching of Christ. Love one another as I have loved you. My dear friends, there is a favorite rabbinic story about a rabbi who asked his disciples how they could tell when the night had ended and the day was begun. The first disciple said, "Perhaps we can see an animal in a distance and can tell whether it is a sheep or a dog." "No," said the rabbi. "Is it," asked another, "when we can look at a distant tree and tell whether it is an olive or a fig tree?" "No," said the rabbi. "Is it," asked the third, "when we can gaze into a cup and tell whether the liquid in it is water or wine?" "No," said the rabbi. "Then tell us," the disciples demanded. "Tell us when you know that the night has ended and the day is on its way." The rabbi said, "It is when you can look into the face of any woman or man and see that they are your sister or brother. Because if you cannot do this, then it is still night, no matter what the time may be." Speaking in his first Sunday noon blessing, Pope Leo XIV recently said, "I carry in my heart the suffering of the beloved Ukrainian people. Let every effort be made to achieve as soon as possible an authentic, just, and lasting peace. I am deeply saddened by what is happening in the Gaza Strip. Let the fire cease immediately. Let humanitarian aid be provided to the exhausted civilian population. And may all hostages be freed." My dear friends, the Christian heritage of Europe is often described as a heritage of love, emphasizing the core message of Christian love for one's neighbor and self-responsibility. It was the laying down of life by Christ out of love that shaped Christianity in this way. The most profound message, therefore, in the Gospel of John is that God first loved us. Christians are able to love only if they understand the love of God through Christ. No wonder then that Christ says, I give you a new commandment: love one another. As I have loved you, so you also should love one another. John's Gospel, chapter 13, verse 34. The entire social teaching of the Catholic Church is guided by the fundamental principle that every human person is the object of God's infinite tenderness, and God's presence in each life gives it the dignity that they have. Thus, the new law of Christ, the call to sacrificial gift of oneself for the sake of others. Now, make no mistakes. Fulfilling Christ's command to love one another is not a feeling of vague compassion or superficial or intellectual sadness at the misfortune of others, but a genuine and an action-driven initiative for the good of others. Today we live in a world where intellectual and vague compassion is expressed in religious-packed words. My thoughts and prayers are with you when people suffer misfortune or are victims of senseless wars and mass shooting. Christian love calls for active solidarity with other people because they have the innate dignity that make them valuable, lovable, and worthy of protection. The second reading from the book of Revelation presents the vision of a new heaven and a new earth. In this vision, people do not go up to heaven. Instead, heaven comes down to them. What distinguishes the new heaven and the new earth from the old is the practice of love, according to the model of Christ. For where love and charity abides, there God is found. He makes his home among mortals and dwells with them as their God. My dear friends, embracing this vision challenges us to appreciate other people around us, particularly the voiceless, the poor, and the immigrants. It calls us to be inspired by the practice of the early church to evangelize by sharing the lives of all, listening to their concerns, and helping them materially and spiritually in their needs. In fact, rejoicing with those who rejoice and weeping with those who weep. Christian love in itself is sacrificing, is service, and it is presence. When our love serves, it honors Christ's love, seeking to honor the Father. And when we do this, God dwells with us. May God bless you.